The UES Artemis drifted silently through the void, its quantum sensors carefully mapping the gravitational eddies of the Carina Nebula's outer rim. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at her command station, dark eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed their position relative to known Valerian space. The massive ship, despite its imposing size, was designed to appear deceptively primitive to outside observers, a deliberate choice that had taken human engineering to its limits. "Signal detected, Captain," Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported from her communication station. "Definitely Valerian in origin. They're using their standard scanning frequencies." Maya nodded, suppressing a smile. After 6 months of carefully orchestrated accidental encounters near Valerian space, they had finally attracted the attention they wanted. The Valerians, notorious for their technological superiority and isolationist policies, had developed a reputation for testing, and usually rejecting, contact with other spacefaring races. "How many ships, tactical?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. "3 vessels, Captain. Configuration matches their Sentinel-class patrol ships. Heavy energy signatures, consistent with their documented weapon systems," replied Commander David Okonjo, his fingers dancing across his haptic interface. "They're arranged in their standard triangle formation." The bridge crew maintained their practiced calm, though Maya could sense their excitement. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, studying the fragments of information available about the Valerians from other species. Their apparent technological edge had kept most races at a respectful distance, but humanity had seen something others missed: patterns in the Valerians' behavior that suggested both intelligence and predictability. "Open standard greeting channels," Maya ordered. "Let's see if they're ready to talk." The response came faster than expected. A sharp, crystalline tone filled the bridge, followed by a burst of data that their systems automatically began decoding. The Valerians were known for their complex, multi-layered communication protocols, another test for potential contacts. Dr. Elena Petrov, their xenolinguistics expert, leaned forward at her station. "They're using their formal contact protocols, Captain. But there's something unusual in the substrate frequencies." Maya had been waiting for this. "They're scanning us on quantum bands, aren't they?" Elena's eyes widened slightly as she checked her readings. "Yes, how did you?" "Because that's what we would do," Maya replied, allowing herself a small smile. "Maintain passive systems only. Let them look their fill." The Valerian ships drew closer, their sleek crystalline hulls refracting the nebula's light in ways that made them seem to shimmer in and out of existence. It was beautiful, but Maya knew it was also intentionally intimidating. "Another test. They're requesting visual communication," Sarah announced. "Accept," Maya ordered, straightening her uniform. The main view screen shimmed to life, revealing a being that looked like a collection of geometric shapes arranged in roughly humanoid form, its crystalline surface constantly shifting in subtle patterns. "Vessel approaching Valerian space," the being spoke, its words translated smoothly by their systems. "You have entered a restricted zone. Identify yourself and your purpose." Maya stepped forward, her posture relaxed but dignified. "I am Captain Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth ship Artemis. We come seeking peaceful contact with the Valerian Empire." The crystalline being's patterns shifted rapidly, their equivalent of raised eyebrows, according to their intelligence. "Your vessel's capabilities appear limited. Why should the Valerian Empire waste resources evaluating such primitive technology?" "Because, Honored One," Maya replied, using their formal address perfectly, "appearances can be deceiving. Much like your patrol ship's crystal hulls that scatter sensors but hide quantum phase cannons, or your communication protocols that carry hidden scanning frequencies." The bridge fell silent as the Valerian's patterns froze momentarily. When it spoke again, there was a new tone in its voice, something approaching respect. "You are more observant than others who have sought contact, Captain Rodriguez. Yet knowledge alone does not prove worthiness." Maya's smile widened slightly. We would expect nothing less than a thorough evaluation from the Valerian Empire. We welcome your tests, all of them. The crystalline being's patterns swirled in what their analysts had identified as amusement. Very well, human. Your first test begins now. As the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. Battle stations. Passive systems only. Let's show them what primitive technology can do. The UEA's Artemis's engines hummed to life, ready for whatever challenge the Valerians had planned. But Maya knew they had already passed the first real test, proving they were smart enough to see through the Valerians' facades. Now came the interesting part, showing them that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to understand and adapt to their opponents. The game had begun, and Maya intended to play it perfectly. The Valerian ships moved with liquid grace, their crystalline hulls catching the nebula's light as they encircled the Artemis. Maya watched them on the tactical display, noting how they maintained perfect spacing, even as they executed complex maneuvers. It was beautiful, precise, and entirely predictable. They're charging weapons, Commander Okonjo reported calmly. Energy signatures suggest low-power configuration. Maya nodded, unsurprised. They're calibrating their targeting systems. Notice how they're cycling through different frequencies. They're trying to map our defensive capabilities. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, maintaining their passive stance even as the Valerian ships probed their defenses. The Artemis's true shields remained dormant, while the outer hull absorbed the weak energy pulses, making it appear as though they had only basic defensive capabilities. Incoming transmission, Lieutenant Chen announced. The crystalline being appeared on screen again, its patterns shifting in what their analysts had identified as confusion. Your defensive systems are inadequate, yet you maintain position. Explain. Maya kept her expression neutral. We trust in the Valerian Empire's reputation for thorough evaluation before action. These are clearly calibration pulses, not actual attacks. The being's patterns swirled rapidly. Your ship's technology is centuries behind ours. Your presence here is illogical. Is advanced technology the only measure of worth? Maya asked, letting genuine curiosity color her voice. Your own history speaks of the time of crystalline formation, when your people were far less advanced, but no less intelligent. The bridge fell silent as the Valerians' patterns froze momentarily. They had spent months debating whether to reveal their knowledge of Valerian history, knowledge that, officially, no outside race possessed. You are well informed, the being stated, its patterns now shifting in complex ways their analysts hadn't documented, perhaps dangerously so. Knowledge itself is neutral, Maya replied. It's how we use it that matters. We studied your people not to find weaknesses, but to understand how to properly communicate with you. The Valerian ships suddenly accelerated, their formation tightening. Energy readings spiked across all three vessels. Multiple targeting locks, Okonjo reported. These are not calibration pulses. Maya remained calm. Maintain passive stance. They're not going to fire. Captain, Elena interrupted, her eyes on her readings. I'm detecting complex quantum fluctuations in their shield harmonics. They're setting up a resonance cascade, Maya finished. A test within a test. They want to see if we recognize the real threat. The Valerian ship's energy signatures continued to build, creating a complex interference pattern that their analysts had theorized could collapse a standard shield system. It was an elegant weapon, one that had likely worked countless times against other races. They're waiting for us to either flee or raise our shields, Maya explained to her crew. Either response would prove we're not worth their time. She turned to face the view screen. Open a channel. The crystalline being appeared, its patterns now rapidly shifting between combat and communication configurations. Your ships are creating a beautiful resonance pattern, Maya said conversationally. The quantum harmonics are particularly elegant. We have a similar art form on Earth. We call it music. Perhaps we could share cultural demonstrations once the testing phase is complete. For the first time, the being's pattern showed genuine surprise. You recognize the pattern, yet take no defensive action. Why defend against art? Maya replied with a small smile. Unless, of course, there's something else we should be watching for. The energy buildup from the Valerian ships suddenly ceased. The crystalline being's patterns shifted to a configuration they'd never seen before. 3 tests you have now passed, Captain Rodriguez, it said. You saw through our facade. You recognize our true weapons. And you understood that the greatest threat was neither. The real test was how we would react to feeling threatened, Maya stated. Violence, fear, or understanding. Those were our options. Indeed, the being's patterns stabilized into what they recognized as a formal diplomatic configuration. You are correct that knowledge itself is neutral. It is wisdom that matters. Your ship appears primitive, yet you demonstrate understanding that many technically advanced races lack. Then perhaps we can move beyond testing, Maya suggested, and begin actual dialogue. The being's patterns shifted again, and this time Maya could have sworn she saw amusement in their configuration. No, Captain. Now the real tests begin. As the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. All hands to battle stations. Active sensors online, but keep our main systems in standby. Let's see what they really want to know about us. The Artemis's systems hummed to life, ready for whatever came next. But Maya knew they had already achieved their first objective. They had made the Valerians curious. In her experience, curiosity was often the first step toward understanding, and understanding was what humanity did best. The attack came without warning. One moment, the 3 Valerian ships were maintaining their triangle formation. The next, they had vanished in a burst of quantum distortion. Multiple spatial ruptures detected. Okanjo called out, his fingers flying across his console. They're using some kind of phase shift technology. Maya's expression remained calm even as her mind raced through possibilities. The Valerians had just shown their first real card, the ability to shift their ships partially out of normal spacetime. It was impressive technology, but not unexpected. Hold position, she ordered. Full sensor sweep, passive only. Delina analyzed their displacement signature. The bridge hummed with tension as the crew worked. They had trained for this, but simulation was one thing, reality was another. The Valerians had centuries of technological advancement over humanity, or so they believed. Quantum wake patterns indicate they're still here, Captain, Elena reported, studying her readings. The phase shift isn't complete. They're maintaining partial coherence with normal space. Maya nodded. Because they want to be able to attack without completely leaving our dimension. Clever, but predictable. Sarah, are you picking up their command frequencies? Yes, Captain. They're using quantum encrypted channels, but Lieutenant Chen's eyes widened. They're using the same baseline encryption we detected during their earlier communications. Overconfidence, Maya said softly. They assume we couldn't crack their codes in such a short time. David, do you have their positions? Approximate, Captain. The phase shift makes exact targeting impossible. The air around the Artemis suddenly crackled with energy as 3 quantum phase beams lanced out from seemingly empty space, converging on their position. To the Valerians, it must have looked like a perfect trap. Their target couldn't see them, couldn't track them, and couldn't hope to defend against weapons fired from partial phase space. They were wrong on all counts. Now, Maya ordered. The Artemis' outer hull, which had appeared so primitive to Valerian scans, suddenly shifted. Nanomaterials reconfigured themselves in microseconds, transforming the ship's surface into a perfect quantum mirror. The phase beams reflected back exactly along their paths of origin, their energy multiplied by the ship's own power systems. 3 brilliant explosions lit up phase space as the Valerian ships were forced to fully materialize, their phase shift systems overloaded by their own weapons. Valerian ships have reappeared, Okanjo reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. Their phase shift systems are offline. Minor damage to their primary systems. Open a channel, Maya ordered. When the crystalline being appeared on screen, its patterns were shifting so rapidly they were almost a blur. Impossible, it stated. Your technology is exactly as advanced as we needed it to be. Maya interrupted gently. We could have destroyed your ships just now. Instead, we chose to disable only your phase shift capability. Would you like to discuss why? The being's patterns gradually stabilized. You anticipated our attack. You understood our technology enough to counter it. Yet you chose restraint. Violence is easy, Maya replied. Understanding is harder, but ultimately more valuable. We didn't come here to prove our superiority, but to establish communication. Your ship's appearance was deliberate deception. No more than your crystalline hulls that hide quantum weapons, Maya countered. We each keep our advantages private until they're needed. The difference is in how we choose to use them. The being's patterns shifted to a new configuration, one that suggested deep thought. You said earlier that knowledge itself is neutral. You demonstrated this by using your knowledge of us not for destruction, but for defense and dialogue. Every species advances at its own pace, in its own way, Maya said. Humanity's strength isn't in our technology, but in our ability to understand and adapt. We studied you not to defeat you, but to find a way to talk to you. By allowing us to attack you, Maya smiled. By letting you learn about us the way you learn about everything, through testing and observation. We simply made sure the test revealed truth about both our species. The crystalline being's patterns stabilized into something entirely new. You are not what we expected, Captain Rodriguez. That's what we were hoping for, Maya replied. Now shall we begin real negotiations, or do you have more tests in mind? The being's patterns shifted in what they now recognized as genuine amusement. Perhaps both, Captain. Perhaps both. As the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. Stand down from battle stations, but maintain current defensive configuration. Something tells me our new friends aren't quite done testing us yet. The crew responded with practiced efficiency, but there was a new energy on the bridge, a sense of accomplishment. They had passed the Valerians' test not by dominating them, but by understanding them. It was a uniquely human victory, won not through superior firepower, but through superior insight. And Maya suspected that was exactly what would make the Valerians take humanity seriously as potential allies. The situation changed dramatically when 12 more Valerian ships materialized around them, their crystalline hulls gleaming against the nebula's backdrop. Maya had expected this. The Valerians never conducted significant tests with only a small force. New vessels are Dominion class, Okonjo reported. Much heavier armament than the patrol ships. They're arranging themselves in a tetrahedral formation. Maya studied the tactical display with interest. The formation was perfect, too perfect. Alina, what do you make of their pattern? Dr. Petrov analyzed the readings. It's mathematically precise. Each ship is exactly equidistant from its neighbors, maintaining perfect symmetry even as they move. Like a crystalline structure, Maya mused. Sarah, are they still using the same command frequencies? Yes, Captain. They've added more encryption layers, but the baseline remains consistent. Maya smiled slightly. The Valerians were brilliant, but their very nature made them predictable. They approached space combat like a mathematical equation, seeking perfect solutions. It was time to show them a different way of thinking. Load the special package we prepared, she ordered. Target their command and control frequencies. The crystalline being appeared on their screen without warning. Its pattern suggested confidence, perhaps even smugness. Your situation has changed, Captain Rodriguez. Your understanding is impressive, but understanding alone cannot overcome superior force. Perhaps, Maya replied casually. Though I'm curious, have you ever played chess? The being's patterns shifted in what they now recognize as confusion. The human game of strategic combat. We have studied it. A primitive simulation of warfare with rigid rules and predictable outcomes. Ah, but that's where you're wrong, Maya said, her eyes twinkling. Chess isn't about the rules, it's about how you think within them. Sometimes, the best move isn't the most mathematically perfect one. She nodded to Lieutenant Chen. In that instant, the Artemis broadcast a signal across the Valerian's command frequencies. Not an attack, but a message. A chess problem, specifically, one of the most famous in human history, the Saavedra position. The Valerian ship's perfect formation wavered slightly as their commanders inevitably analyzed the puzzle. It was a brilliant endgame study where the seemingly obvious mathematical solution led to defeat, while the winning move appeared illogical at first glance. Your transmission contains a tactical puzzle, the crystalline being stated. Its solution is unclear. Because you're looking for mathematical perfection, Maya explained. But sometimes, victory requires a counterintuitive approach. Watch. She nodded again, and the Artemis suddenly fired its engines, moving in a pattern that seemed random, but was anything but. The ship wove through the Valerian formation, its movements deliberately disrupting their perfect symmetry. Their formation is their weakness, Maya explained to her crew. They're so focused on maintaining mathematical precision that they can't adapt quickly to irregular movement patterns. The Valerian ships attempted to compensate, but their very precision worked against them. As they tried to maintain their perfect spacing, their movements became increasingly predictable. The Artemis danced between them, using their own rigid formation to shield itself from multiple firing angles. Remarkable, the crystalline being observed, its patterns showing genuine fascination. You are using our strength as a weakness. Just like in the chess problem, Maya replied. The obvious solution isn't always the best one. Perfect symmetry can become perfect vulnerability. To demonstrate, she ordered a series of micro-jumps that sent the Artemis weaving through the formation in a pattern based on the solution to the Saavedra position. Each move seemed to put them in greater danger, until suddenly, all Valerian weapons are now at cross angles, Okonjo reported with satisfaction. They can't fire without risking hitting their own ships. The crystalline being's patterns shifted rapidly. You have positioned yourselves so that any attack would require us to break formation. A formation you can't break without disrupting your entire command and control structure, Maya added, because your ships are coordinating through quantum-entangled crystalline networks that require perfect geometric alignment. For the first time, the being's patterns showed something close to respect. You did not merely study our technology. You understood how it shapes our tactics and our limitations. Understanding is humanity's greatest weapon, Maya said. We don't need to match your technology to recognize its parameters. Sometimes, knowing how your opponent thinks is more valuable than having superior firepower. The Valerian ships held their positions, caught in an elegant trap that used their own precision against them. It was a uniquely human solution, not overwhelming force or technological superiority, but creative thinking and psychological insight. A most illuminating demonstration. Captain Rodriguez, the crystalline being, said finally. Perhaps we have been approaching these tests from the wrong perspective. Maya smiled. There's no right or wrong perspective, only different ways of thinking. That's why first contact is so valuable. We each have something to teach the other. The being's pattern stabilized into what they now recognized as diplomatic mode. Indeed, perhaps it is time we discussed what humans and Valerians might accomplish together. As the tension on the bridge eased, Maya knew they had achieved something remarkable. They had earned the Valerians' respect not by matching their strength, but by showing them a completely different way of approaching problems. Sometimes, the best way to win wasn't to play the game better. It was to change how the game was played entirely. The nebula's light painted shifting patterns across the Artemis's bridge as Maya faced the main view screen. The Valerian ships had reformed their formation, but differently now, no longer in an attack pattern, but in what their databases suggested was a ceremonial arrangement. Your species continues to fascinate us, Captain Rodriguez, the crystalline being said. its patterns flowing in complex ways that suggested deep thought. We have encountered many races who sought contact with the Valerian Empire. Most attempted to impress us with displays of technology or military might. Those are easy to measure, Maya replied. But they tell you little about the true nature of a species. Indeed, the being's patterns shifted to what they now recognized as their equivalent of scholarly interest. You came to us in what appeared to be an inferior vessel, yet demonstrated capabilities that rival our own. You study our history and culture not to exploit it, but to communicate more effectively. You turned our tests into opportunities for mutual understanding. Maya smiled. We believe that the best way to prove humanity's worth wasn't to show you our strongest weapons, but our strongest traits: curiosity, adaptability, and the desire to understand. The crystalline being's surface rippled in what their analysts now confirmed was their version of appreciation. Your approach was unprecedented. You allowed us to underestimate you, then used that misconception not to gain tactical advantage, but to teach us about ourselves. Sometimes the best way to help someone understand you is to help them understand themselves, Maya said. We knew from studying your history that the Valerian Empire values precision, perfection, and power, but we also saw something your other contacts missed: your deep curiosity about the universe and its inhabitants. The being's patterns became more complex. You refer to the time of crystalline formation. Few outsiders know of this period. When your species was young, Maya continued, before you develop your advanced technology. Your earliest records speak of looking up at the stars and wondering what secrets they held. That curiosity drove your advancement, not the desire for power. You truly did study us thoroughly, the being observed. Yet you use this knowledge not for advantage, but for insight. Because that's who humanity is, Maya explained. We're explorers and learners first. Yes, we can fight when we must, but we prefer to understand. Our greatest victories have always come not from overpowering our opponents, but from finding ways to turn them into allies. The being's patterns shifted to a formal diplomatic configuration, but with subtle variations they hadn't seen before. Then let us speak of alliance, Captain Rodriguez. Your species has proven itself not through dominance, but through wisdom. This is refreshing. Maya nodded to Lieutenant Chen, who transmitted a data packet they had prepared. These are our preliminary proposals for cultural and technological exchange. You'll notice we're not asking for your most advanced technology. Instead, we're suggesting collaborative research projects where both sides can contribute equally. The being studied the transmission, its patterns showing increasing interest. Most races demand our quantum phase technology or crystalline computation matrices. You instead propose joint studies in xenobiology, cultural exchange programs, and cooperative space exploration. Because technology can be copied or stolen, Maya said, but understanding, true understanding between species, has to be earned. We believe that's worth more than any weapon or shield system. The crystalline being's patterns suddenly shifted to a configuration they had never seen before. In all our centuries of contact with other races, none has approached first contact in this way. You have not simply passed our tests, Captain Rodriguez. You have changed how we will conduct them in the future. Maya's smile widened. Then we've achieved something far more valuable than just establishing diplomatic relations. We've helped each other grow. The being's pattern stabilized into what was unmistakably a gesture of respect. The Valerian Empire formally recognizes humanity as equals and potential allies. We look forward to learning more about your unconventional ways of thinking. And we look forward to learning from your wisdom and experience, Maya replied. After all, that's what first contact should be about. Not proving superiority, but finding ways to complement each other's strengths. As the transmission ended, the bridge crew of the Artemis let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding. They had done more than just succeed in their mission. They had demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their ships or weapons, but in their ability to understand, adapt, and find peaceful solutions to complex problems. "Send word to Earth," Maya ordered, looking out at the crystalline ships now flying in formation with the Artemis. "Tell them that humanity has made its first true allies in space, and we did it not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being uniquely human." The message was sent, and as the Artemis moved deeper into Valerian space, Maya knew they had written a new chapter in human history. One that proved that sometimes the greatest power isn't in the ability to win conflicts, but in the wisdom to transform them into opportunities for understanding. After all, that was the real secret of humanity's success among the stars. Not that we were stronger or smarter than other species, but that we never stopped trying to understand them. And in that understanding, we found not just allies, but a greater understanding of ourselves.